Hello everyone, nice to have you back. Samantha here again with another video, and I thought today we would have some fun 3 ways with an S, as I've entitled this video today. I'm going to show you how to make a very simple S clasp, a really nice decorative way to finish off bracelets, necklaces. Probably better for the necklace, because obviously with the tension it pulls the necklace, you know, sort of downwards, so there it doesn't really come undone very easily. So I'll show you how to make a small version of this guy here. 3 ways with an S. So I thought I would also show you how to make the S clasp into a bit of a different type of scroll here, which here I've used with a pair of earrings, little bead earrings. How sweet are those? Okay, so I'll show you how to make those. Those components there you can also use with necklaces. So I'm working on this piece here, as you can see, beautiful. I'm also going to show you the 3rd way with the S is how to make these really sweet components for your beaded necklaces and bracelets. Okay, so it's another variation on the S theme, except this time it's got a little jump ring to add a little bit of interest in the centre. Okay, so let's have a look and see what materials we're going to need today. Again, as usual, I thought I would use some 1mm bare copper wire, again because I think that's, you know, we have a lot of that in our stash, don't we? So 1mm bare copper wire, or indeed any wire of your choosing, as long as it's half hard, not too soft. Okay, you're going to need some chain nose pliers. I suggest 2 pairs as usual, because we will be doing a little bit of wrapping and that kind of thing. Okay, so 2 pairs. You're going to need either your round nose or your 6-step bail making pliers. I prefer to use these guys because I get more consistent loops with them. Okay, and a pair of flush cutters as usual. I am going to be hammering these little guys, so, you know, to give them a little bit of texture. I like a little bit of texture on these. So you will need a chasing hammer and a little bench block. Okay. So I'll get the table cleared and we'll go ahead and start making 3 ways with an S. I hope you enjoy the video. So I'll see you in a couple. So the first thing I want to show you is how to make this very, very simple but effective S clasp. Brilliant for using on your necklaces. It's a really decorative clasp, and I think it looks really, really pretty, especially if you incorporate these other little links as well. It all sort of flows nicely. Okay, so for this little one here, let me have a look how long this measures. This particular link, clasp should I say, measures, let's have a look, about 2.5 centimetres, which is, as we know, about 1 inch. Okay, so let's start with this guy here. All right, so for the clasp, you're going to need some bare copper wire, 1mm. I think that's 18 gauge. I will just double check because I work in millimeters, and I'll pop it in the description for you. Okay, so as usual, we flush cut the end just so it's nice and neat. And for the clasp, we want 2.5 inches. Okay, so we measure the 2.5 inches. Give it a snip and pop these to one side. Okay, so we have our length. What we need to do is to make these 2 little loops here on either side. Okay, now they want to go in opposite directions to each other. So with your chain nose pliers, needle nose if possible, if you have a pair, you want to grasp the wire right at the very end. You can see that, okay? And bend it against your thumb so that you have a little hook like so, okay? and then take your plier and very gently squeeze. Okay, if it does that, just straighten things up, it's fine. So that we have this. Okay, so we want to do one on the other side, but it needs to go in the opposite direction. Okay, so again, right at the very end, bend it against your thumb so you have a little hook, and then squeeze with the plier. It might want to work against you, as wire does, but that's absolutely fine. Nice and controlled. Okay, so we're left with this, with a tiny little P on either side, okay, in opposite directions. Okay, so now we want to bring in our 6-step bail making pliers to make these hook shapes. Okay, so for the 2.5 inch, to make this 1 inch clasp, I know I need to use the 5th step on my plier. Okay, again, if you're a fan of using your chain nose plier, your round nose pliers, that's absolutely fine, go ahead. This is how I do it. Okay, so with the little loop facing you, you just butt it up against your steps with the 5th step furthest away from you. Okay, not the biggest, the next one down. Okay, then what you want to do is bend the wire around until it almost meets this long part here. Okay, remove, and this is what you have. In the opposite direction, okay, so as you can see, we want to do exactly the same thing, but in the opposite direction. So again, pop your loop and butt it up against the plier. Very carefully bend your wire round again until it almost meets, okay? And then remove it from your pliers. That is essentially it. Now, because you haven't work hardened your wire, it will be a little bendy, so not particularly good for a clasp. Can you see that's moving? If you work harden by gently hammering, it's much more stable and much more secure. Okay, so what you want to do now is to bring in your bench block and your very, very small happy little chasing hammer, and just give it a light tap. Not too much, not too, you know, don't work it too much because that makes the metal brittle. Okay, so tap, 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 tap until you're happy with the amount of stability and the amount of texture that you have. Can you see the difference? Oops, can you see the difference in the two? That one's flattened and that one's more rounded. Okay, so that's all you need to do. So that's the first S, that's your S clasp. How cute is that? That's really sweet, isn't it? Okay, so let's move on to our S number 2, which is this sort of swirly, interesting, textured component that looks great with necklaces, beaded necklaces, that kind of thing. Okay, so again, the same principle applies, except we're making 2 little loops at the end, at the end of each of the lengths of wire instead. Okay, I'll show you what I mean. So again, take your wire and again flush cut the end just so it looks nice and neat. Okay, straighten it, and again you need 2.5 inches of wire. Okay, so let's just cut 2.5 inches. So here's your length of wire. So let me just grab one that I made earlier. Okay, so as you can see here, on each side, you've got a little hoop. Now, into that hoop, we're going to be putting a little jump ring, okay, for a little bit of interest. So we need to make these little hoops, again, in opposite directions. And I use the smallest step on my plier, right at the very end, so you can't feel it and it's not, you know, it's nice and flush. And gently roll, okay, with your wrist until you have a little P. Turn it over, and with the P, with this sort of hoop facing you, we want to make one in the opposite direction as we did with the other piece. Again, right at the end, and against the pad of your thumb for control. Okay, and this is what we have. So we want to be making these hoops here, okay? So instead of the 5th step, we're going to be using the 4th to make these slightly smaller, okay? So the 4th step on your plier, again, put it up against the pliers and very gently bend it round, okay? Looks almost like a swan neck. And then again in the opposite direction, do the same thing, nice and controlled, so that we have this shape, okay? Can you see the slight difference in the shapes? That's the clasp, and that is your link component. Can you see the slight difference? Okay, now again, the best thing I suggest you do is give this a slight hammer, again with your chasing hammer and your little bench block, because it does give the metal a little bit of stability. And if we're using it in things like chains, it doesn't want to be too malleable, or else it'll just fall to pieces, okay? So go ahead and make a few of these and then give them a slight hammer so that you've got a tiny bit of texture. I don't know if the camera will pick that up. It's just slightly flattened and it makes it nice and secure, okay? So go ahead and make a few of these and then we'll come back and we'll put the jump ring on, okay? See you in a couple. Lovely, so hopefully now you've made a few of these little guys and you've given them a little bit of a hammer. And the next thing we need to do is just pop a little jump ring through the center of the 2 loops, if you can see that there. Okay, just it gives it a nice sweet little bit of interest, I think. Okay, so my best advice is to use a 4mm jump ring with this particular size of link. Okay, and these are made with 1mm wire. Okay, so you open your jump ring that way, not outwards, but back to front like so. Take your component. If I can just see, because I'm working through the camera, you literally pop the jump ring, I don't know if you can see that there, through the 2 holes, okay? Grasp with one side, take your other chain nose, grasp with the other side and close it up nice and neatly, okay? And there we have it. So that's your second way with an S, okay? So how cute do they look? Lovely. So that's that. So that's your component for your necklaces and bracelets, okay? The third and final way with an S I thought I would show you is how to make this little component here. Again, variation on the theme, but instead of being horizontal, this is vertical. And how pretty are those? Look really sweet, don't they? And I've also used that particular clasp, that particular component in this beautiful necklace that I'm working on with these gorgeous triangular beads. And how pretty does that look? Okay, again, dead easy to make, so I will just talk you through how to make these ones, okay? All right, I'll just pop these up here. So again, you want 1mm wire, okay? You want 9 centimetres in length. So again, flush cut, get rid of that, and we'll measure 9 centimetres of the 1mm wire. Just snip. Okay, so we want to make a spiral at each end. Okay, so I'll just leave that there so you can see what I'm talking about. So a little spiral on each of the sides. So you take the very end of your needle nose pliers, if you have some, they are handy to have, and just start making a very simple spiral. Okay, can you see that? Now you wind this spiral around very gently with the flat side of your plier until the end in the center here is in line with this part here. Okay, so you just wind it round the once. Again, like with the others, we need to do it in the opposite direction. Okay, so with this spiral facing upwards, again, take the end of your plier, okay, and start to make, a very gentle and easy spiral. Don't have to be perfectly exact, because again, like with handmade jewellery, we don't want everything to look like it's been made in a factory, do we? So don't worry too much. Okay, so there we have, that's what we have. Can you see that? Okay, so now we want to be making this spiral, this S shape. Okay, so again, we bring in our bail making pliers, and I'm going to be using the 4th step again. Okay, so with the spiral facing you, put it up against the 4th step on your plier, and again bend away from you until the wire almost meets. Okay, turn it the other way around. Again, with the spiral facing you and against the 4th step of the plier here, bend it until it almost meets. Okay, and that's your necklace or earring component. Again, my best advice is to give it a gentle hammer, gentle tap, because it gives it some stability. Okay, as you can see, after I've hammered and tapped these slightly, I don't know if the camera will pick that up, but you can see that it's flattened in little places, and it makes it much more sturdy. And I think these earrings are extremely pretty. Very simple. And you can dangle anything you like off them. You can have dagger beads, or maybe 2 or 3 different beads, like a cluster. I've made quite a few of those. You can get some nice long howlite dagger beads. They look really pretty. So there you go. How do they look? So that's 3 ways with an S, I call it. All different sort of ways of using them, and so versatile. And again, super easy for the beginner, and it'll really elevate your jewellery making and your jewellery pieces. Let me know in the comments how you get on with these little guys, okay? And I'll see you hopefully next week for another beginner video, okay? Nice to see you guys. Thanks for being here. Bye.